theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong.
Hi, Warren. Do you remember the pink dollar? Do people still talk about the pink dollar?
I think so. And they say pink washing. I suppose it's like the green dollar and the green washing as well. Yeah, the pink dollar.
Well, when I was watching this week's program on Netflix, I was reminded of how some of the most high-profile transphobic stand-up comedy is being platformed on Netflix. That's where the home is. Yet they feel compelled to show, quite a lot of LGBTQ content on that platform. It's interesting to know that they can't ignore us, I mean, they're unwilling to remove the offensive stuff, but they're also very aware that our money means something, I think.
Well, you can't have both ways. You can't put offensive stuff up. So, Suzy, have you spoken to them?
No, I haven't spoken to them.
You are Suzy Wrong. Seriously.
Well, do you know, it was so bad that they had staff walking out in San Francisco in protest, and they've kept those specials on Netflix. And I guess what they've done in response is to increase their LGBTQ programming, from what it looks.
Oh, to make you feel better.
So maybe they are trying to have it both ways.
Well, you know what? The pink dollar does talk, because we do spend our money, and I think it's unacceptable if Netflix or any other platform that has, I suppose, a sort of like a social responsibility, don't they? A license to broadcast material shouldn't be broadcasting hateful stuff, no matter who it's directed to. So, Suzy, I reckon we get onto it.
Well, we'll do what we can do.
Definitely. Today we are talking about something that is on Netflix called Outstanding. Tell us about it. What was your review like?
More than 20 comedians, all of them LGBTQ, are interviewed for the new Netflix documentary Outstanding. We hear from luminaries like Margaret Cho, Sandra Bernhard and Wanda Sykes, as well as trailblazers like Robin Tyler and Lily Tomlin, who began their careers in the 1960s. And younger stars like Joel Kim Booster and Trixie Mattel from the Instagram and Drag Race generation. We learn that although there have been queer comedians working in the USA since the 1920s, very few have been able to sustain a career whilst being out and proud. There is a lot of wisdom to be gleaned from these reflections by the world's funniest people. Not only is their commentary humorous, they are cleverly observed and meaningfully interpreted. Almost all of these performers work in the stand-up format, which means that there is always an emphasis on biographical storytelling in their material. But it is only in recent times that they could be really truthful with what they are able to divulge on stage. We hear about the constant tension between trying to speak the truth and the threat of losing opportunities. We are reminded of the unceremonious cancellation of Ellen DeGeneres' hit sitcom in 1998, when she decided that her character would come out after 4 big years on American television. Over these 95 minutes of watching Outstanding, I experienced quite a powerful catharsis. The historical content is all very familiar to me, and many of the moments that these comedians recall are actually highly significant to me, even though I have always lived oceans away from the US. It only shows how connected we are as a community, that we are indisputably linked, that we share not only a history, but also a culture. We have separate identities, but there is so much that we hold in common, not least of which is the trauma, which we have always known to laugh our way out of. Warren, I hope you enjoyed listening to all these wonderfully articulate people.
I did, Suzy. I just want to pause this for a second. You've got me going on this hate stuff on Netflix at the moment. And just think about it. You're talking to people now. We're all listening to you, Suzy, and you've recommended that we watch something on Netflix. You could choose not to do that. So you do have power in your voice, and I reckon that we send a message and say it is not tolerated. Look, Outstanding. I loved it, Suzy. I really did. I loved it. I think one of the things that stood out the most is that the TV world, it's not a level playing field, is it? So these people, these LGBTIQ plus comedians or anyone on your TV, and someone talks about this in the show, overcome so much adversity to get just to that level where they're presenting on TV or putting their show in front of everyone on stage. And I just thought about it. It's like, I don't know, do we use a word handicap in sports anymore? It's like we're so far behind. We have to overcome all these hurdles just to get on that screen. Did you notice that, Suzy?
Yeah. Like there are these characters in this program Outstanding that I really, really love, and many of them I have loved for decades, but they are not at the same level as people like Dave Chappelle or Jerry Seinfeld, And there's just so much that has worked against them. And I mean, fair enough, maybe some of their content is very niche, it's very community focused, that they don't kind of have, talk about things as general or in my opinion, mindless as Jerry Seinfeld. So maybe they were always never going to be that kind of popular. But we certainly see how the amount of roadblocks that they get behind the scenes, all the people in the way of them achieving success, even though it's so obvious that they have so much to contribute, that there's so much talent there.
It's interesting because, and I think that applies to all of us, we've all got so much potential, haven't we, to do whatever we want to do with our lives. But all this anxiety and, stress, it takes energy, and we're not coming from the same starting line. And I just wonder what that potential loss is that, we all have. Do we all reach our maximum best or what we want to be because we've got so much to deal with by, how society treats us? And I don't know, that always stays with me. I just think, if everything was perfect and, we're all loved and there were no problems, we didn't have to look over our back for religious organisations attacking blah, 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 we could put all that energy into just growing and developing ourselves.
Yeah, and into being creative and giving to the world what we are really good at. But instead, we have to censor ourselves. We have done for many, many years. And, there is a positivity, right, to this Outstanding, kind of showing the trajectory. Like, I think it's careful to show that we haven't reached a point of equality, but it's shown how much progress has happened. It's really good to see, the new generation now being able to kind of be very much themselves. It looks like they're completely themselves, and being able to talk about things that really matter to them, even though it's really interesting, I suppose, that Joel Kim Booster made the remark that he has been warned, and he's only like in his early 30s, that he's been warned that, yeah, he's great. And he's proven himself the last couple of years. He's become very high profile himself. But he said through his career, he's had people say, don't go anywhere near the topic of sex if it's going to be about your own life, because then people will start thinking about men doing things with other men, and it's going to just upset people.
Horrible.
And, and that would have just been something that people have said in the last, last decade. So clearly, there's still a lot of work to be done.
There was also something else that I learnt in this show. It's called Outstanding. It's on Netflix at the moment. And that is straight comedians work around, or their work tends to be centred around fear and anxiety, and how much energy goes into not wanting to appear gay. And it was refreshing to see these rainbow comedians just being authentic and being themselves, and genuinely funny, and not having to use other people to be funny or anything like that. It was just, I found it very, very refreshing. They talk about, I don't know much about her, but they talk about a person by the name of Anita Bryant, who decided to be reborn again. And I don't know, I thought this was really, really sad because, once she was reborn, she then focused her entire life on attacking gays and lesbians. So went through this whole process, and that was her focus, on attacking us. And I just think, as we were talking before about not necessarily reaching our potential, I would say to people like Anita, we're all smart. All humans can achieve things, and you don't know what you're suppressing. Like, we could be discovering all sorts of things because we're so tied up in managing our anxiety and looking over our shoulder. I mean, you don't know what we could do. I don't know. Maybe there's cures for things we could be working on. So it's in your interest to keep everyone happy and to love everyone.
People like Anita Bryant continue to exist. She was prominent in the 60s, but in America and in the UK especially, there are like contemporary examples, people who use hate as a platform. I don't really know whether Anita Bryant was operating out of some kind of psychosis, or was she just being opportunistic? But with that degree of hate, you kind of think like, wow, why is your entire life's energy put into this? This is so incredulous. But people do that, and sometimes I do think that maybe it is some kind of mental disorder. Maybe it is. But what it tells us is that these people will always be there, and we live in a system where these people have an opportunity to leverage that kind of weird hate from ignorance. They're not really talking to just hateful people. They're talking to people who are ignorant and who have very little access to information. And then so they hear someone who's really passionate and who kind of has some adherence to the Bible or their respective religions, and they think, oh, this person makes sense. So, I feel like we are always living in a situation where these people will take every opportunity and behave like Anita Bryant, especially in the field of politics. And, we are lucky that it doesn't seem to be as severe in Australia. I mean, hopefully it doesn't happen here, but clearly the opportunity is always there. Like, I believe like there's still this thing where people are terrified about drag queens going to libraries telling stories, right? So I think there's always this murmur of this kind of hate, this kind of people trying to organize against us. That's always around the corner.
We're chatting with Suzy Wrong about Outstanding, which you can catch on Netflix. Anita said, and this is, and I quote her, this is it, and it's, I mean, I'm laughing now because it just sounds ridiculous, but if you're, I suppose, in whatever Anita's religion is, and you're queer, and you're thinking, oh my God, my leader or whoever I look up to is saying that I'm this thing. So she says, gays can't reproduce, so we reproduce by recruiting other children. I mean, that's monster material. I mean, why? They're so scared, and there's bigger things in the world to worry about.
And the funniest thing for me is that much as they try to kind of muzzle us, get rid of us, they keep producing us. Like, we come out from them.
Exactly.
That's the biggest irony of all.
You made us. Oh, it's so hypocritical and so stupid. One of the challenges that we face, Suzy, I suppose, before we come out, if we choose to come out, is being honest about ourselves and being authentic. And I learnt from this show that queer comedians, I suppose, led the way, didn't they, in being honest, and that was their comedy and just being themselves. And someone said, comedy is the sugar that coats the medicine, and it really is in this show, Suzy.
Yeah, speaking truth to power is one of the biggest most important things they do, as well as kind of giving us minorities, right? Like people who suffer from prejudice. Like, when you hear these things being said, often it's the only time you hear someone sharing what you are thinking about, because especially when we were young, we didn't have people around us that we trusted, that we can confide in. So in my case, I would have heard people like Sandra Bernhard. I would have heard people like Margaret Cho in the 90s and thought, there's a resonance there. So clearly I'm not going mad. So it is this kind of counter to this gaslighting that happens, because often what the system wants to do is to make you feel like you are weird, you're different, you're wrong. But when these comedians have the opportunity to come out and say what they think and coat it with sugar, it allows us to feel not so alone and allows us to feel validated. So I do think that their work is very important. I know in my own life that the work of a lot of queer comedians have touched myself. Even today, like Wanda Sykes is probably my biggest comedic hero, and just help everything that they do. And it's a lot of work to come up with an hour of jokes. And I'm very grateful to my heroes, people like Wanda Sykes. And I would urge everyone to tune in not only to Outstanding on Netflix, but also to Wanda Sykes. I think she has 2 specials on Netflix. Highly recommended.
There, you've recommended 2 shows on that platform. So, Suzy, I saw Margaret Cho. I was in Canada, and I went there for a first time, and it was a skiing holiday. It was freezing. Anyway, she just happened to be performing in the little village that I went to. And this was years ago. I'd never seen her before. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. I loved her. So she's my favourite by far.
Yeah, and both of them speak so well, so eloquently, with so much wisdom in Outstanding. I think it's a really good work there that people should watch.
Some SMSs have come in on 0427 569 949. I did enjoy seeing Anita Bright getting a custard pie in the face. That's from Nurse James. This one here saying, generally they are closet cases, internalised hate, or their partner is queer and they feel threatened. I think it is. It all comes down to being threatened, don't they? Like, we are so scary. This one here saying, it was really informative, however, not at all what I expected. Seems it was all the behind-the-scenes interviews from the last year's comedy show. I was expecting comedy, but got schooled instead. That's a fair comment too. I thought there'd be a bit more comedy in it.
Well, the comedy special came out 1 or 2 years ago. I think it's called Stand Out, if I'm not wrong. So this is sort of like the behind the scenes stuff. I find it hard to talk about stand up, so I don't generally do it on our Tuesdays. I feel like they've already said everything that you want, that's worth talking about. But I felt like maybe if the documentary would give us more food for thought. Yeah, the actual thing is called Stand Out. It came out a couple of years ago. It's still available on Netflix with all these amazing comedians.
Suzy, what are we watching next week?
Next week in Lost Boys and Fairies, available to stream on Stan, a gay couple begins the process of adoption, but one of them is hesitant. Warren and I won't be having a baby, but we will see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Suzy.